and it's hard for people to see your full face on a mask. That's why I'm using like more powder than creams to prevent that. Okay, like I mentioned, like I mentioned, I was running late, so I kind of just had to like throw on my clothes and run out the door. It's not a game, it's a rich thing. Walking to the venue now. I have my mask that I'm about to put on, but it's kind of gloomy today. I was hoping that it would be a little sunny, but it's not. I had to park just like around the corner. They're working on a shop or something. Did I park down? Oh no, okay. So I'm walking now. I got on these shoes. I'm gonna have somebody do an OOTD for me, but let's go. OOTD shoes, pants from Boo Boo. This is from Ross actually, but the tag says Urban Outfitter. So we got some art over here. So I tried to get something from every station. This is my friend, and so she was gonna make me a customized plant pot and give me one of the plants that she just started growing in the water. Be sure to follow her on Instagram to see other artwork. Got the black market stuff going on over here. From the black market boutique, I actually got a black top, and some black jeans that are super cute. And if you've been watching my YouTube videos for some time now, you may actually remember Keisha, and I did a whole interview with her on her boutique. And so follow her on Instagram to get some vintage clothing. Got some card readings over here. I did not get my cards read, but this is one person who was reading a lot of people's cards. From the station, I did decide to get two of her juices. I got a Starburst kind, which was like strawberries, watermelon, and some other things. She does freshly juice all of these products, and so I also got a charcoal lemonade one, which was really good. And then she also sponsored like some of the cocktails that we had at the event. Be sure to follow her on Instagram. I'm not sure if she does internet or worldwide shipping, but you can still follow her and get ideas. Woman of the hour. This is Roots Heart and Soul, and she does vegan soul food, which is really good. So be sure to follow her on her Instagram, because she's always giving tips on how to create recipes and what she uses. This next company is LUZBERLY Body Care, and I actually got this really nice cuticle oil from here and some bath salts. And so she creates everything by hand, and it's all natural. This next one is Quasi, and she's created African print clothing, which are really pretty. You'll have to go to her Instagram and see the items listed. At this point, we started doing a lot of socializing, and I was really just taking the time to catch up with some of my friends that I haven't seen in a while that showed up to the event, because my best friend Keisha and the lady over the juices were the host, and so I knew quite a few people there since Keisha and I are pretty close. So I caught up with a lot of friends, and I also just took the time to purchase some items from each of the booths before the panel. So the panel is where you're going to hear them talking about some things that are prominent in the Black community in particular. For example, voting rights, and where they stand on that spectrum. And then there are a few other questions. I did not record the whole panel discussion because that would have just been like hours and hours of footage, but I really tried to capture some of the important pieces that they were talking about. There were 4 people on the panel, all who have a variety of different backgrounds, and it was just a really good way to tie it all together. We were really supporting women in business in this moment. Everyone at this event was a woman of color, Black woman of color in business, and so they really wanted to tie everything together by doing the panel. So sit back and enjoy, and leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of this type of style of video, and I will check in at the end.
First and foremost, to have all of these beautiful Black women especially during the time when things are kind of going out the window. This is really healer. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to Chloe, to Sinead, to Bree, to Gabby, to Joy, to Ty, to yourself, to myself. And then other than that, I also want to thank all the family and friends. So I know like a lot of our families and friends came out today. Shout out to you guys. Yes, right? Family fighting is not the easiest thing at all. So the fact that you guys come out, you guys support, you guys were texting us like, hey, what do you guys need? What else is there to do? Like, we love you. So this is from everybody. So family, friends, you guys come out and support. We love you. Thank you. We have Chloe Stevens. Absolutely, Chloe is the owner of BC. All had the pleasure of meeting and seeing her beautiful creations. She's an entrepreneur with a background in political science. She spent the first part of her career lobbying and working with representatives. She's currently a legal corporate consulting, selling legal technologies to corporate attorneys. Her focus and goals for the future and the community is to create a platform that allows people to become politically involved, constitutes to influence their communities in the most positive way. Alright, next we have Chaz. Ow! Hey. Ow! So Chaz is a native of Prince George County, Maryland, a U.S. Air Force veteran, and the founder and CEO of Samori Group. Under the umbrella of the Samori Group, he has established TSG Security, a private security entity, and TSG Training, which provides firearms training and instruction. Motivated by the history of individuals and organizations such as Fannie Lou Hammer, Asada Shakur, and Deacons for Defense, and Justice of the Month for Self-Defense. Chaz is dedicated to creating self-reliant solutions that better serve his community.
Dawkins!
And then lastly, we have Nicholas Dawkins. Anybody who went to South High School.
Rebels!
How excited that I am that he's here. He has had such a big impact throughout our entire high school experience. And again, like I said, anybody who went to South can attest to that.
Amen.
Amazing leader, amazing example, and I'm just really blessed that he's here. So, as far as he goes, he is as a community-focused, culturally responsive community leader. Nick Dawkins continues to raise the bar for innovation and for what is possible, leading for equity and educational excellence. A leader and catalyst for change in the current educational reform efforts, Nick's 2 decades of experience in working in schools and communities has given him a deep insight, inspiration, and commitment to the youth in our city. As an educator and school leader, Nick has tirelessly worked to close achievement gaps and increase access and equity to experiences that create significant impact in the lives of our students from various cultures and regions throughout our country.
Everyone was able to attend, so we're going to kick off first and foremost. There is a political spectrum that people have a tendency to fall on. And so first and foremost, I kind of want to tap into where do you feel like you fall on that spectrum? And what kind of influenced that to occur?
Yeah, for sure. So when you say spectrum, you mean as far as this service or middle? I would say I fall in the middle. A lot of this is influenced justify just time working at the Colorado State Assembly. It really just depends on the issue and how it's going to affect the community or you as an individual. And so I feel like a lot of times we put into categories for everything, and it's really important just to look at things from an independent perspective of, hey, this is that, and it's your own views, right? So for me, I feel like more in the middle of things. Obviously, being a business owner, I'm more on the conservative side of a lot of financial aspects and stuff, but Chaz.
You said spectrum.
So at these ends of these spectrums, there is the conservatism group or body of people as compared to a liberal functionality. And so there is a vast discrepancy between the two. So where would you decide that you should sit on that spectrum?
Similar to quote, business owner, so I have capitalists. I have things I have to do to properly run a business to be successful, and I think a lot of the people, ethical capitalism or being an ethical conservative, my views are they're absolutely much more liberal. I come from an oppressed class of people, so of course I have much more liberal views as far as how things should be solved. And I guess that would kind of put me in the middle, but those are the two options as far as where I sit. I think overall my politics would be nationalism, it would be black nationalism overall. So that would kind of remove me from that two options. Like I do what I have to do because I'm here in this country, but overall.
He's having a hard time hearing you. Can you repeat the question? We can hear you.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Thank you. It was always hard for me to understand conservatism in terms of just I don't know what it is to conserve my thoughts. I'm a very expressive and forward-looking leader, I think, and so I really appreciate the question. I really would fall in the area I heard the last speaker around Pan-Africanism, as well as the idea of a true justice and democracy. I believe that the politics of the parties right now are similar, like two wings on the same bird. And so what I'm always looking for is ways to increase equity and access for those that are around us. But I don't subscribe to one political ideology more than the other. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And so in terms of the definition of nationalism or Pan-Africanism in this context, Chaz, what does that mean to you?
For me, my ideologies and my philosophy. So in terms of, we're here to talk about voting, how I feel about this place and the space that we're in. So how I view my interaction with it, how I view its interaction with the world globally. So if I'm moving from a black nationalist perspective, I can't align with this place if it oppresses other places. So I cannot put my power, my energy behind a candidate if I know that once you're in power, you're going to use that power to oppress places that I should be in solidarity with as a black nationalist. So if my representation here or my power here is to the detriment of other people, I can't rock with that. That is my black nationalism, where I want us to absolutely come together to organize and be empowered, but not at the detriment of other people domestically or globally. So my black nationalism is one of an ideology, socially, economically, and politically that centers us without being the detriment of other people. And I think that's important when you compare it to white nationalism. We know the term white power means something very different than the term black power. White power is oppressive, black power is empowered. So black nationalism is to empower, not to oppress. And so my black nationalism is just want to empower us socially, politically, and economically, which we're doing here today. This is economic black power. With these black women in their businesses. This is us exercising black nationalism, our patroning these black businesses. I think that would be the best way to properly frame it, is how I do it there.
And we had also mentioned just the discussion as a whole is built to be focused around voting. So Chloe, in terms of your earliest memory of voting, what is that for you? I can say for myself was when I turned 18, I was at Howard, I was in DC, and that was Obama's second year. But I was like, I'm gonna vote for Gary Johnson, Mom. And my mom was like, I'm sorry, what? You're not.
You're not.
Right now. And I was just like, I feel pressured, but I'm gonna do it. Because I feel like there's this boomer generation above me that is communicating a certain message. And I felt like that was what I had to do. Or someone detailed to me that that was a waste of my vote if I was to not vote for a primary candidate. So what was your earliest experience with voting and how did that impact where you are today?
Yeah, so shout out to my mom. My mom had been watching like really intense, pro-black movies at a very young age. Just to so we kind of know who we are, where we're coming from, this country, who our ancestors are. And so voting for me was all of a sudden instilled hey, you had people that might have died in your lineage to have the ability to vote, you have to vote. It's just not an option. You're a citizen of this country, you're going to vote. But I think one thing just to mention is during session, which is usually January to possibly June here in Colorado, there's voting every day on everything, from the air that we breathe to the mattresses that you sleep on. So even being in contact with your representatives or understanding how bills and everything takes place is so vital. Voting isn't just every 4 years or primary, it's ongoing, it's all of the time. And so that's something just to be conscious of, hey, not only can I vote during these times, but also all of the time. And I think that can be used as a way to empower people in our community, because people are making decisions all of the time that are going to impact. So I want to talk about something really quick just to mention. So there was, to talk about how important voting is. So there was a recent bill that I was helping on. It's called the Social Equity Bill of marijuana, right? So a lot of us know a lot of black families were torn apart with all these stupid marijuana offenses. And the Colorado Social Equity Bill, actually that got passed, they're going to try to make an amendment for it coming up, but it's put in place right now almost for black people to get certain licenses. There's over 400 licenses in Colorado that are all out to light dispensaries. And they were going to allow blacks or people to have 6 to try to make it socially equitable. However, within that legislation, it's basically a sharecropper situation. So if you're now a black dispensary owner, you have to be under a host dispensary owner, and they get some of your profits and all that stuff. So I'm just saying that as an example to say, it's important to know voting is happening all the time, and issues are important, because it's if I want to become a marijuana owner of creams or whatever, now I have to go under a host. That doesn't make sense. And it's we talk to the representatives, and now next session, there's already amendments being put in place. I'm just saying that to say, that's how important voting is, because it just impacts people on the smallest level that you can't even think of, and how discriminatory that is on a larger scale, right? Is that really leveling the playing field? Absolutely not. So I just, sorry, I know that was a long answer, but I just wanted to explain all of that and how important voting is and how it came to be. And I think it was partly my mom and pushing my
Mr. Dawkins, can you hear me? All right. I just wanted to make sure. So in terms of your earliest memory of voting and its impact on your life thus far, what was that for you? And how was it crafted?
So thank you for the question. So actually, Lakeisha and Raquel and those guys should remember, when Obama's first run was probably my most exciting time. That's actually what ushered me into the principalship. I returned from England and studied at Oxford and was really excited about the idea of a black president. It was something that, my grandmother and I used to talk about as something that couldn't happen. And I think that's my most memorable voting experience. My mother was a Black Panther who moved to Denver from Texas. And we always knew that voting was like a life or death issue, literally. So she was chased by the FBI out of the state. And so my history and my family, you know, I have my John Lewis shirt on right here, right? Like, voting is serious, and I think the sacrifices that are connected to voting is what I always think about, even when I am down and I feel like the political system isn't working. I think it's important that we always advocate, whether that be at the school board level. You know, as a principal, when Denver voted for meal levies, those were real increases in the lives of kids that gave them like great access to sports, arts, and things that they didn't have. And so I know that voting is just central to our community. And I would also say, like, look what happens when the tone isn't as good politically, right? It's like it creates a different environment. And so voting, I think itself has always been important to me. It needs to be coupled with action, and that we need to always hold those that we vote for accountable as well. So those are some of the things I think about when I think about voting, and I'll continue to vote even when, you know, things, you know, don't always feel like that they're the best outcome, because I believe it's so important to the tone of the kind of life we have and the kind of leadership and messages that we receive from those that are in power.
Thank you. Right.
I have a comment. So I think as far as what Chaz and Dawkins were talking about is really just reading and educating yourselves. For me, as far as just my perspective and what I observed just being in this generation, is that a lot of us are influenced by social media. And it's also understanding that a lot of the algorithms that you're seeing is designed to keep you in a certain bubble. So, you know, like they mentioned, like when you see something and they're like, oh, this candidate says this or this candidate says that, you know, are you going and doing the work to read about what that actually means? And really gaining a perspective that really comes from like a human perspective, like Leslie said, from the highest to the lowest, right? So not just, you know, taking on somebody else's perspective because it looks good or because, you know, they have 12,000 likes or whatever the case may be. So just taking the time to educate yourself and to really see like what aligns with your heart, what aligns with your mind. You know, not even that, but what's going to be something that you can serve for yourself, what's something that you can serve to the community. Because I think, again, it means so much, especially in Denver, especially with, you know, our community being very small to start with. So it's important, like you guys have mentioned, you know, who owns that building? You know, how can we come in and be like, okay, how can we support this person? How can we really build within eternally versus like something that unfortunately at this time is outside of our control systematically, right? And understanding, like I said earlier before, like this is not something that's going to change in a week or a year or even 4 years in the next term, but what we can do within internally is the most important. So I just ask that you guys, when you read something, check yourself. Make sure you're not just being like, oh, that's right, versus really thinking back to this, you know, thinking back to like, what are your morals, what are your values, what are you looking for characteristically, and who you want to lead, you know, your community, your country, whatever the case may be, whatever your perspectives are, but just read, educate yourself.
I just have a comment, and it's just piggybacking off of Chloe. If you guys just go to the Colorado General Assembly's website, you can literally look up legislators, bills, and that is a way you can inform yourself and keep yourself informed. I just wanted to say that. So, and you can look up that location too. So you can, you know, plug in where you're at and know exactly who you need to talk to. So I just wanted to make that point.
And one thing I wanted to piggyback on that, depending on where you fall on the spectrum, don't feel like if you're Democrat, not reach out to Republican or vice versa.
Yes.
Because the great thing about Colorado here is a lot of people are very open to like bipartisanship, or like if you're a constituent and you know they want to do what they feel like is important to you. So
Ms. Roby, hi. As a person that was born in 1960 and has gone through a lot of what we're seeing now, I know there's another senior in the room.
Wise beyond
Right. The one thing I want to say is that as we do the courageous work that we're all called on with all of our brothers and sisters, white, black, Latino, African American, African, hold space. Stay in curiosity and non-judgment so that we can make the healing changes that we need to make. I think it starts with all of us, that we need to be radically self-compassionate so that we can show up the best version of ourselves, because that way we're not showing up confrontational. Everybody's going through a lot, and that way we can be compassionate to other people. And like Wayne Dyer's statement, you have a choice to be right or to be kind. Be kind.
I have a question for you all. So personally, I'm an artist. I'm a jazz vocalist here locally in Denver, and so I've been here my whole life and kind of seen, in my 24 years, seeing kind of the change of everything that's going on. But I guess my question is, how do we reach the furthest parts of the community? So like we've all seen the movie Queen and Slim, right? And we see, the final scene when the last moment where this darkest, furthest part of our community end up selling them out. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like right now, like we're amongst peers and we're amongst intelligence and we're amongst like just feeding into that energy. But I guess my question is for you all on the panel, or for anyone really, is how do you all feel as a community that we can encourage like the furthest, darkest parts of our community, because that still is us, regardless. And I just think that's something that's important to talk about, because I'm a college student myself right now, going through the grind of that you all have been through, and like seeing that part of it. And not only that, but I was raised in 5 Points. I've seen both sides of all the spectrum, we'll say. But I guess, I really do have a question for all of you, but specifically Chaz, because I really appreciated your aspect of talking about how, like the powers that be really aren't looking out for us, so why keep investing our energy and power in something that's not looking out for us, So I guess that's my question. How do you all four of you on the panel, feel about the correct method to take this message and spread it to the furthest parts of our community?
I think it comes with engagement. Being in the 5 Points, especially being on Welcome Street, you see the best and worst of everything. And it's all about how you carry yourself. I ain't above nobody. Like, I'm a college dropout. I used to rob niggas to get by. I'm good at, I got it how I had to get it to be at where I'm at now, to be informed enough to do this. So when I see somebody down and out, I ain't above it. I just helped a lady carry her tent down Welcome Street the other day. And she be talking to herself when she coming like, I engage with my community. I don't care. You banging? Cool. What's up? Let's talk. Let's chop it up. Just engage with them. Especially our house community. Because they still got the right to vote. They got ID. They still a part of the community, like you said, from the top to the bottom. They're still community members. So I think even if they down and out, even if they the youngest causing havoc, chaos, talk to them. Ain't nobody else trying to get to them. Denver PD ain't trying to rap to them, they trying to lock them up. Or they trying to sweep them off the block. I think that's the realest way to do it, to really build that sense of community with them, so that when you are out and about, ain't nobody a stranger to you. Nobody is unfamiliar to you. Or I understand, I can empathize with what you're going through. And so then we connected there, so that when the white family move into the neighborhood that don't want you here, I can advocate for you, because I know what you're going through. We might have just talked in passing, but I got you. And I think that's the realest way to do it, because you want them to engage as well. You want them to, if we talking about how much this matters, bet. I still need you to engage into this, youngin'. Hey, I know you claim whatever said. You can still vote though. If you ain't a felon, you can still do this thing. So I think it's important to regardless of how high you climb, and that's why I appreciate I appreciate what I'm at. I appreciate what I went through, because I don't see myself as better than nobody. I ain't got no degree. It wasn't for me. It wasn't my route to do. And so for me, I can still interact with that. I can still, when I need to speak very proper and engage in that way, I can do that. But that's not where my comfort level is speaking calm off the cuff. So I think that's the realest way for us to do it, is to be able to engage when you see them families and you know they're going through a mental health crisis, or it might be that day, Slim probably used that day and he's wilding out. You might not be able to solve that problem, but just talk to him, so that the motherfuckers walking by that think they wilding out. Hey, yo, he's straight. He's just not here right now. I think that's the realest thing we can do, is just engage each other. Like the elder said, the queen said, we have to don't come confrontational. Yo, Slim, you bugging out. Hey, what's going on? What you need? I'ma just sit with you. Smoke your crack. No, I don't want none, but I'm gonna sit with you. Because I've done it. I done did it. I said, I promise you I'm not the nigga that sold it to you. And gave meet people where they at.
Yeah.
To get them to where you are.
Yeah.
Instead of like going at it. I think that's the realest thing we can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Dawkins, do you have any insight on that question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of so one, like, we need to wrap our arms around our youth. And so what I would say is, like, it's hard for me to think of it as, like, a dark place in our community because, like, that, you know, it's only dark when there's not light. So the kids are down at the Gilliams. They need help. Like, you can go see them right now. And there's a lot, you know, when they get out, it's like, what hope is there for them? Do we have internship opportunities for people? Do we forgive people? You know, honestly, our generation, our elders during the gang banging and stuff of the 90s, like, a lot of them didn't give back a lot to us. And so I'm proud of this generation for doing more than that because they're not as scared of the kids. And so, like, not being scared to go to places where we know struggle is really, really important, right? Like, we know that the water in Flint, Michigan isn't right? So it's not like it's not hidden from us where people are struggling. It's like, do we want to go into those spaces? And if it is dark, shine our light. As a turnaround principle, that's been the best work of my life.
So that is all for this video. I'm trying to vlog more, and so this was a fun way to just incorporate all of the this particular event right after the pandemic. Make sure you watch episode 1 where I'm showing you like my makeup look and all that stuff, me getting ready. Be sure to follow me on Instagram to see pictures. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out these 2 videos here, and I will see you in my next upload. Doodles!